Hey everybody, welcome back to Sergeant's Talk TV. Big Mike here.
Overly tan Jason.
Yeah, dude. If you wore a hat and you only took it off a little bit while you were in the pool on the boat, yeah, you got a good start to a suntan.
Oh yeah, that was kind of the plan, because right before we left, she had shaved my
Yeah,
head and she was laughing because the little half moon in the back where your buckle is, right? Well, because I wear it in the sun all the time, that's where my tan line was. And
yeah,
so I was like, okay, but I've I've had my head bald since 2003, so it's been so long that
yeah.
if I wear a hat and I get a bad tan line with it, with a one day of being outside without it, sometimes not even a full day, it'll catch back up with everything else.
So the Caribbean cruise you went on was probably pretty awesome.
It was very awesome.
The drive there and the drive back.
Not so awesome. No. We made the determination that if we're going to go out of that port again, it will be a
Yeah,
flying only trip. We will
yeah.
fly there, fly back. Now we're working on, so I know nobody's going to be shocked. We're already working on trying to plan another one.
Yeah.
And but that one is going to be closer. We started looking at what ports they go out of. Well, there's a couple different lines that run out of New Orleans.
And
Still,
Galveston.
and then that's only like a 9.5 hour drive, which is still a lot, but it's better than the 18 to 23 that we just did.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but you know, the super sweet thing, and I mean, I don't want to go into too much, but unless we get a bunch of people on, but is one of those that the amount of veterans that were on this cruise was phenomenal.
Yeah.
It seemed like everywhere we went, there was somebody wearing a veteran hat, wearing a veteran shirt, or you're just sit down and start having a conversation, and it comes out that hey, they were a vet or they knew a vet or something. And of course, obviously, if I'm wearing a cutoff shirt, this conversational piece throws it out there and kind of gives them that starter of, oh well, let's talk vet things. And
Well, usually I can put just having a conversation or listening to some people, I can pick out the veterans.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Just the way they talk.
Oh, for sure. And then the super cool thing was they actually did a veteran ceremony.
Really?
Invited all the veterans on the ship into the one auditorium. What was that? A theater. Brought us all
Yeah.
into the one theater and had a really awesome, like the cruise director came up, gave a really good speech, just honoring the vets and stuff. Oh, he's going sideways. Which way is he going to go?
Do you know this guy?
I might. I mean, I'm a little thrown back. Like somebody got in a fight with a razor, and I don't know if I'm okay with this.
Well, there are many others that are not. Somebody said
Yeah.
glue it back on.
Well, you see what I did? I shaved the beard off.
Yeah. Well, that's
Terry's not a big fan of the beard on me. She goes, "You look old."
Well,
I
they
said,
said I used to look younger when I shaved it, but this time it didn't work. So
I mean, I love you, Unc, and I'm gonna say this all, but you look more like Mustache. You need to grow that back now because it's.
Jason, you got a beat down coming when I see you, son.
I earned it, but I still had to say it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
we looked at cruises out of Galveston, And on Carnival was the cheapest. And we could go on a 7-day cruise for 2 people. And I think the base price was $1,505. And then if you add whatever into it, then of course you just keep adding stuff to it. You could I think what we did was we added something and it went to 17. And then Terry said, well, she looked at the prices for beer and wine because Terry drinks wine, and it was like $8 a glass, but they only put about this much wine in a wine glass. It's called a serving, she said.
Well,
So
we
that's
found
like
the hack.
$8, and Terry
found
can
the
pack
hack to the
down,
drink package.
huh?
So we found the hack to the drink package.
What was that?
Well, so we didn't buy the drink package because we looked at it and we went through Carnival. So, I mean, everything that we did on our cruise is based on what they, what their company policy is. Well, we looked into the drink package, and for what you were going to pay, they only allowed you 15 drinks a day.
Right.
And so we're like, well, what if we wanted more? Then you're going to have to pay. Well, then you could only get one drink at a time and then have to wait 5 minutes to get the next one. And so what we found was because, like, one, it was like, hey, we're not going to go and be sloshed every day. Now, that was the plan when we left. We got feeling pretty good about every day we were on the ship. But when we ran the cost, when it was all said and done, it was cheaper for us to buy her a whole bottle of wine, which was an option. You wait till you're out at sea, right? Once you leave the port, then the tax comes off. It's duty free. We would buy her a whole bottle of wine, and then I would buy buckets of beer, which were 6 beers. And they were the tall boy, the 16-ounce cans, not 12-ounce. And for those ones, it was like that bucket was like $54 if you were not in port, and it was like $60 if you were in port. But then if you go on shore, there was a lot of places you were buying the six beers, bucket of beers. They were like $20-$25. So
but you couldn't bring that back on the ship.
No. So I mean, you just had to consume. But doing the bucket, it was a bucket in ice with it, so it kept them cold.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
But yeah, and that was through Carnival. They do offer a military discount. I can't remember if it's 10 or 15, maybe 5. They do have. I know if you go to their site. Now we got an Uber benefit because we went with Pops, and Pops has a good travel agent and was able to book us all like discounted. Got us all discounted tickets, so it was quite a bit less because Tara and I looked into it, and I was like, how are these people affording a cruise? Well, you get a good travel agent and then know what you're going to buy. And then we didn't pay for any excursions. We had one.
Did it yourself.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So, Unc, how you doing?
Better than I deserve, I think.
Well,
I'm getting through each day. Actually, doing some walking with your Aunt Dina now. So I'm doing good.
Good.
Awesome. Hey,
I spent the whole day at the VA today.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I had my 6-month visit with my doctor, and she said, "Oh, I see you're 64 years old." And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "We need to get you ready for 65." I said, "Let's not rush this." She goes, "No, there's some things we need to do." So they booked me everything for today up at the VA in Muskogee. And I went up there and I had to do a echogram on my heart. And they echogrammed my upper intestine or whatever they did, And she said somebody will read all this stuff and get back with you, yada, yada, yada. And then I had to go get a new back x-ray. So I went and did back x-rays. And then I had to go over to the podiatrist because I'm a diabetic. And I've in 25 years on the rolls, they never have ever checked my feet. And then the lady goes, "Oh, would you like a new pair of shoes? It's been a year." And I'm thinking, man, I don't even wear the ones you gave me because as expensive as they are, they're crap. And so I told her, and she goes, "Well, we got these new ones. They're kind of like the Skechers slip-ons." I said, "All right." And I have a pair of those because they feel good on your feet, number one.
I love mine.
And I think I paid like $44 for them at Denver Shoes, whatever the hell it was. And so she gave me a pair, and the ones that they have are $144. Elon needs to check into that contract because somebody's getting the frick ripped off, you know. And the reason they cost that much is we measure your foot and they make it for you. No, they don't. They said size 13. There they are. Ship them. They don't do that crap. But
yeah,
I spent all day up there. Oh, and I got my glasses.
Well, they issued me a walker when I went up there last week.
Really?
Yeah, I've had some issues since. Well, and Jason knows from when he was here, with falling, and so now they've issued me that. However, I am going to get a new bathroom. I'm going to get a walk-in shower and stuff. They're going to buy it, pay for it.
Wow.
So, I don't know how that happened, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
So, and that was something that they had talked about when we were there visiting the last time. They said, "Hey, we're going to see if we can submit to have it done."
Yeah.
And then, because he had more falls, and they're like, "All right, well, now you're going to get the walker." Did you get the nice fancy one with the seat and the built-in cooler holder? I mean, cargo.
Absolutely. Built-in cooler holder. I used it Saturday. So.
Well, let's say hello to some people in here. Hey, there's Neil S.
Hey,
Neil. There is Chris over at Leonard Mountain Homestead.
I see Bruce Jolly kind of threw me off for a minute. I thought maybe that was Holly. I was like, whoa, wait, but Jolly.
There's Judy Herman. And there he is right there. What's he say? From the left coast.
Yeah, he was home ported in stateside in San Diego on the Westpac out of Subic Bay.
I like that, the communist state of Washington. Yeah. There's Terry. Lazy Days Ahead's here.
There's Jesse and Lisa. See, Angie made it in.
Yep, got to see Angie at the meetup. She used her nursing ingenuity to make a egg scrambler where you put the eggs inside of a juice container. The ones that have the handle and has the little spout on the top. And I guess you shake them all up until they're scrambled, and then you can just pour it on the Blackstone. So there you go. A nurse hard at work at the meetup, filling everybody's veins with cholesterol. Keeping the medical profession busy.
Right. The job security.
There you go. What does he say? my ship, the USS Durham, Lake 144, was part of Operation Frequent Wind. Somebody had gas on the boat. We got to tease the Navy. Got to.
Yeah, definitely. Although I guess there was a competition between David and Tim in their room on the ship for the cruise where they were seeing who could
Oh,
stink.
they were bunk buddies?
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
But that's some stories.
Yeah. And Tim was a submariner. So he knows about close quarter.
Yeah, but it was funny because he's like he was hoping that the wind didn't get or the waves didn't get really bad because he is prone to motion sickness. And I was like, you're in a submarine. How? He goes, we were under the water. The waves didn't matter to us. He goes, it just went. And I'm like, okay, you've got a point. You know, he was never on the ship on the top of the water. He was always under it.
Yeah.
So, unless they were going up or down really
I'm
fast.
wondering if you're on a sub, does it feel like when you're walking, you're floating? Like after, you know how have you ever been ice skating?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get off the skates and then you have to walk?
Yeah,
how you
you're all
go,
like,
oh man.
yeah.
Yeah. Wonder if it's like that. Because I was on the USS Kitty Hawk out of Somalia, and all I know is that is one hot SOB is a deck of a flat top. That's craziness. Crazy hot.
You should have rode on the New Jersey. Oh, they markballed it for y'all came around, didn't they?
I don't know. I mean, all I know is the heat was so intense on them flat, but we were off the coast of Somalia. So, I mean, it's hot down there no matter what. But when the wind doesn't blow, it is like a furnace.
I only spent, I think, 2 weeks on a ship, and it was, I think, an LHD. It's one they can take the hovercrafts and bring into a well deck, and so they had like a helipad, I think, on top, but nothing the size of a carrier.
Said he didn't try to find a Holly to marry, then she would be Holly Jolly.
That would be awesome.
I'd have named one of my kids Holly if it was a girl. She'd be a tough girl after a while.
Oh, Angie said she had to help a guy that fell, huh?
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Dina does that all the time.
Oh, Chris fell?
No, I think Chris was talking about with the cooking.
Oh, with the cooking.
Yeah.
He was the whipper and he was the flipper. Yeah. So we've got 15 people in here. So anyway, guys, tonight we're going to be talking about the subject of conversation is, do I have a responsibility when it comes to vets helping vets? And am I my brother's keeper? Meaning, do I have a responsibility to help other vets, support our active duty military, and things like that? And my thoughts is, I think that we have a responsibility, because I know every time I deployed, well, I can say this when I was stateside, when I was deploying, the VFW was there, motorcycle groups were there, American Legion was there, and when we came back, they were there. basically setting up like a reception area and volunteering when you redeploy and stuff like that. And I think as veterans, and this is just me, we have a responsibility to help those veterans who are less informed. And that's one of the reasons we started this channel, is to help those veterans looking for answers. One part of it, one aspect of it, is to help those brothers and sisters who are looking for answers to things they may not know about, or how do you work the system and things like that. So I think that's when Jason and I started this channel. We thought of a few things. Is number one, it helps Jason and I to talk out our military service. Number two, to talk to other like-minded people that understand. And another reason is to help other veterans open up who that normally would not open up about their military services or experiences and stuff like that, to help them get over that stigma of not talking about it. You know, a lot of people, I can handle this on my own. I mean, it's sometimes it's like a broken marriage. The two people that broke the marriage basically can't fix it. Okay. Or else it wouldn't be broken. So that's why you have a third person to sit there and mediate the discussion so everybody's heard. And the same thing with this channel. So I think we do have a responsibility to do everything we can if we can do it. Okay. I know a lot of people that are veterans that are, you know, the budget's tight. Doesn't mean you have to give money. Time is just as valuable as money. We're not asking, you know, people aren't asking, hey, help me financially and blah, blah, blah. But you may know avenues that might help them. You know, a homeless shelter, if the veteran's homeless, events that communities have, like when I was in Colorado Springs, they had the homeless veteran day, and they rented this big hall, and the homeless veterans, or any veteran really, could come there, and companies and people donated like winter coats, clothing, shoe companies. We had lawyers that were there in case you had legal issues. That's why you're homeless, trying to, you know, erase your footprint. They'll help you with there. We had barbers there to give haircuts. We had doctors there from local private practices that would do checkups, the checkups that they can do there and stuff like that. And it's just, we had a nail salon at one time, and boy, I seen some bad toes. Seen some bad toes. They had to get out the big guns and clip them big old, you know, yellow freaking hard
Got out the
thick
grinding
nails.
wheel. Well,
Yeah.
and I think that you bring up a really good point with that of, you know, my initial take on it, right, with this subject and how we worded it for the live was absolutely yes. I think in any way, shape, or form. Now, like you said, it's not, hey, if you know, you don't have to give money to them financially. You know, sometimes it's a phone call. Sometimes it's just you going over there to physically help them, you know, and giving information. I think that we do 100% owe the older generation. And the reason I look at it that way was I remember, you know, obviously going through boot camp and all the history classes, right? All that stuff that they never taught you about when you were in high school because it didn't matter to them, right? They wanted you to go to college. They don't want to teach you military history. So you start learning about, you know, your specific branch and all the campaigns and what they went through, you know, and obviously more clearly in today's generation is, you know, we have the Vietnam vets. I think there's probably still some Korean vets out there. We was talking with a couple guys on the ship trying to determine, is there still a World War II vet alive yet? Like, I imagine there might be. I mean, but
Not a lot.
right, so the whole idea is getting them that information, because when they came back, they didn't get the service like what we get, that when we come back now, or anybody that served in the current kind of genre. And so I think that getting them that information and that assistance, because they've struggled their whole life, and a lot of times what I've been seeing more and more, and the amount of vets that were on that ship, like I said, was incredible. You always see one or two when you're out in town, right? Everywhere my head turned, I seen somebody wearing a vet hat or had a shirt or something. And just striking up that conversation, because a lot of times they'd be sitting alone.
Yeah.
They were there, and it was just like, I think that that's where our responsibility goes. And it falls, for me, I think it's more of a family thing, that, our family, for sure, it's always do what you need for your elders, right? That respect. I remember from the time I can remember anything, was it didn't matter. You gained respect for your elders. So that meant that, hey, you weren't getting a whooping just from your mom or dad. It was whoever was an adult or older person at that time. When you did something wrong, they were there to correct you. And I think that that's where, for me, that's where a lot of it comes from, is just that respect to what they did, the amount of things they went through that was way worse.
Yeah.
All the deployments and combat tours and anything like that they did, and they didn't have a third of the equipment we have in technology. Just insane.
But I don't think the era makes a difference so much in that. I've been on both ends of this. As was mentioned earlier, I do a lot of mine through a motorcycle club.
Yeah.
I'm with a Leatherneck Motorcycle Club, and we do a lot of rides for our veterans, and use those rides to raise funds for different veterans programs. But on the same token, I've had situations where I needed my fellow veterans, those guys I call brothers or sisters, that have been here, not because I asked them to come, but because I really probably needed somebody, just didn't ask. But they were here at weird hours of the night to say, hey, I'm just here to talk, whatever, I'm just going to hang out with you. And it was very supportive. Those things are really important, and it doesn't matter the era. I mean, we have a lot of young veterans now that have come back from our current conflicts, and there's a lot that come home that physically may be 100%, but they're not always mentally. I mean, we hear every day. I hear every day that we lost another veteran to him taking his own, or her taking his own life, their own life. And it makes you wonder, if I would have just took 5 minutes and called him, or what if I would have went over to his house the other day when he was talking, he seemed kind of bummed out. It's important. I think, yes, we owe the responsibility, because I've had them come to me. So, I've been a receiver, and I can say that I think it's a responsibility. I think it's an obligation. I mean, you take somebody like me. I've never worked in the civilian world. I only ever was in the military. And you put 20 plus years in the service, and then you get out, and it's like, man, I love my wife. I love my kids, but man, I'm like all by myself.
Yeah.
I ate with them, slept with them, pooped with them, did everything. And now I don't have any of that.
Yeah.
So I do think we have an obligation, in my opinion.
But with PTSD and mental health, it is alarming, even though you're surrounded by people, how totally alone you can mentally be, even with people around you. Um, and family's great, but some of the things veterans had to do, or what they went through, or what they experienced, or an injury or anything like that, nobody. I mean, you can have these guys that are PhD psychologists and sociologists and all kinds of crap, but finding another veteran that understands what it feels like to sleep in a mud hole, to deploy into a shithole, or go through things that veterans have gone through. Nobody can understand that. I mean, I can't understand what a drug addict goes through because I've never been a drug addict, so I don't know. You know, you can read book after book, but you don't know what it's like to be a drug addict, to be an alcoholic. Um, you know, it's kind of like you don't know what a person of color goes through because you're not a person of color, nor do they know what you go through because of your ethnicity. Nobody knows unless you're that person, you know. And I think that veterans, unlike all those things I just mentioned, for the most part, have a grasp on another veteran. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, no, I actually seen that so many times in this last week on the ship. You know, we'd be sitting around in some of the common areas, and like I said, it was almost every time that we sat down or walked somewhere, there was a conversation with another vet. And I remember there was a couple guys specifically that really stood out to me, because I was sitting there talking to with this guy, and he's actually the what do they call him, the president of his American Legion, and has been doing it for quite a few years. Retired first sergeant out of the Army, and they've got a whole team of lawyers. You know, like their American Legion up where he lives
Yeah.
is outstanding, right? I mean, they're helping guys get their claims done. They're taking care of these guys. Well, then this other guy sits down next to us, and he's like, "Oh yeah, well, he was kind of one of those, and I guess you got to find that fine line too, right? The
Mhm.
bullshitter, the one that's going to be like, well, blah 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 blah. Well, he was trying to throw some of that stuff out there, and we're like, that's not exact. And all of a sudden, you've seen, like, when we started, him and that first sergeant started talking about where they were at a certain location. I don't remember where it was, right? At the same time, kind of serving not in the same unit, but they realized, hey, we were in theater or at this installation at the same time. And that guy's tone changed totally. And all of a sudden, he was opening up about things. Like, it was one of those that he wanted to start it to seem a lot harder, I guess, than what he was initially. But then when
Yeah.
he realized that, okay, he can't just make stories up with two guys that are actually sitting here that have been there and done that.
Right.
um,
Right.
but then, like, he seeked us out afterwards and would sit down, like, wherever we were sitting, because I would watch. I kind of kept my eye, and yeah, he would seek it out, uh, make sure he sat, like, if one of us was sitting there, even if we weren't sitting together, because we were talking to more of them. So um, I think a lot of that what helps that conversation. And then that's why we've said before, like, yes, going to a therapist is amazing and can help a lot of people, but it helps even more when it's somebody that's been there and slept in those same conditions or served in that same situation, and they
Yeah.
can have that relatability, because then they know, then they open up and they're like, okay, I don't have to fake it now. We can talk about the real things.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that with like a psychologist or something like that, yeah, they may not know or ever would ever know what you're going through, but they've read books. Okay. But I think that the healthy thing, and I am pro psychologist. Don't get me wrong. I am very pro, because what a psychologist's job is to do is to get you to face up, for you to admit, and for you to get your brain working and thinking, either to forgive yourself, to forgive somebody else, or to deal with it. Until your brain, like I said, it's like a drug addict and alcoholic. Until you hit rock bottom and your brain finally admits you are tore up from the floor up and you need help, and you need a way to figure out, how do I cope with it? Because you can't just say, well, you need to do this and you need to do that. They have to get you to convince yourself, number one, there's a problem. Number two, what caused that problem? Number three, how are we going to work so that you can physically and mentally live a healthy life while dealing with that at the same time? So they're very good, So if you're a veteran, don't just close them off because they don't know nothing. Yeah, they don't know nothing, but they do know how to get you to work that out inside your brain and come up with the answer yourself, because you know what the answer is.
Well, and I
You
think a lot of us too look at, it's not a quick fix. I think part
No.
of you recognizing that, hey, I've got a problem and I need help and I need somebody more than myself, or who's, in my home or direct, I need
Sure.
that counselor, I need somebody else, I need a trip to the VFW. But then it's knowing that it's not just one phone call, it's not just one conversation. It is not, there's not a quick fix to it. There's a constant maintenance to it.
Yeah.
Um,
Because
I'll
what do we
randomly
do? What
check
do we
in.
do as veterans? For a large part of our veteran community, they self-medicate themselves.
No.
Number one, if you're so drunk you can't see straight, then you don't have to think about it no more until you wake up the next morning. Now you've got a headache, a hangover, and you still got the issues inside your brain. But they self-medicate themselves. They use drugs, they use alcohol, and then when there's no avenue, they become part of the 22 every day that take their lives because they can't cope with it.
Yeah.
That's not the answer. Okay. So many veterans have lost their family, their kids, their wives. Uh, like our brother in here said, lost the house, lost the family, lost the business. You got nothing. It can absolutely destroy you, whether you have PTSD, whether you have mental illness. I mean, it's all relative uh, to that. I've known somebody that got kicked out of the military for making a bad decision, and less than a month later he'd taken his life. Because that's all he knew since high school. And you know 19 years in the military and you get kicked out. So that was a
Well,
hard pill to swallow.
I was right there. I mean, with the whole aspect that I knew the Marine Corps was a choice for me. That's what I set my goal to be. I did it, left right out of high school, went there, did my time, and when retirement come along, I'm like, crap. I never once thought of anything beyond life in the Marine Corps. And I
Yeah.
think and it took me several years to figure it out, because I did, like, I retired, I moved back to my hometown, or close to it anyways, and was working on, hey, divorce number 2. So
Yeah.
it's like the mental state was drown the sorrows. Keep going into that. And until I realized, what the heck was I struggling with? I was glad to get out of that second marriage. I was glad if, but then I'm like, who the heck am I? And I started talking to some of my Marine buddies, More and more that we're retiring, and they're like, dude, what's the hardest part? And I'm like, it's finding a new purpose.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
When we're serving, it doesn't matter whether you're on leave, you're out doing some crappy extra duty they sent you to do or whatever. You wake up and go to sleep every single night, whether you like the conditions you're in or not. You still wake up and go to sleep and uh, produce an entire day knowing you have a purpose.
Yeah.
Whether your purpose, whether you look at it as hey, it's to my brother and sisters to the left and right, whether it's to my country, whether it's just my branch of the service, it's automatically there. And when we're not active duty, we can't do that anymore. Like, we have to find another avenue. At least that's how it was for me, because I didn't want to go back into like working full time in that. And I probably should have. It probably would have helped things, but I would have had to done like you, Big Mike, and I would have had to go work at a base somewhere.
Yeah.
And in my situation, that wasn't possible because I needed to be closer to my kids, and there's not an active duty base close. So
Yeah.
I think that was the big one. And I've seen, when I've approached guys that seem to be struggling with that mentality of mine, that hey, they're just trying to find their purpose, and use that to bring that conversation back, it helps most. I won't put any kind of numbers on it on what it looks like, but I think the outcome comes out better.
Yeah.
When
And you hit it on the nose when a military person gets out of the military. Everything you do or you did in the military had a purpose, and it was very well defined what the purpose was, why you did things. When you first went in there, you go, man, this is some crazy shit. Why are they doing this? But after time, your mind goes military, whether you wanted it to or not, because the downside of not doing it by the numbers is your ass is in a sling with somebody. Okay. And then when you get out, and I had a big problem with this because when I first got out, I became a contractor. And I became a contractor, and everybody that was working for this contract company was military. And I'm just like going, man, these guys get it. And you just had your daily conversations that really motivated you why you're doing this, right? And then they lost the contract, and I went out and I found another job that was totally civilian, right? And I'm thinking to myself, these are some jacked up people. I wouldn't hire one of these people, in the military. It kind of felt like back when I was a drill sergeant and I'd get another 30 soldiers in, and these people, they didn't know shit from Shino. They knew nothing. And you're just like, but you got to keep it in and you got to be positive. And that's what it felt like when I got out and I was surrounded by civilians, and my boss was like 25 years old. And I'm like going, and I'm 40 something years old. And this guy straight out of college, and, and I'm just like going, you're not going to make it. But the fact is I wasn't going to make it because my brain did not function like somebody right out of college. And number one, he was in his field, and you're sitting there and you're looking at a 25-year-old punk kid, and you're going, man, he don't know crap. It's kind of like getting a lieutenant in, and he wants to do everything out of the book. No, sir. And then you have a responsibility as the platoon sergeant to OJT him from college learning and ROTC or West Point to the real world that somebody's going to die. Okay. And so it is kind of hard, but when you use the word, you have a purpose. When you don't have a purpose and you get out of the military and you don't do well because they smell that you're working too fast, you're working too hard. I'm just like going, what, dude? This has got to last us all week. Like what? And those are the people you're working around. You just go, man. And then later on, they're going, hey, we just lost, so much money over this quarter because, labor exceeded this. Yeah, labor exceeded it because we could have got all this stuff done in this time, but it takes us this time to get it done because nobody wants to do it quick. So you're paying more in labor than what you shipped out. So, yeah, I mean, I get it. I always felt like I had to have a purpose. But before I came in the military, I had no purpose. I had no purpose. I was a wild child and just doing some stupid crap. And I'm going to tell you something. And I was raised by a single mom. And starting in basic, I mean, they pulled my head straight out of my, my fourth point of contact, out of my butthole because it was so far up there I couldn't hear nobody. And I appreciate that part. So, and it's the same thing getting out of the military and having problems. A lot of people that are homeless that I have talked to in for a lot of years is they had nothing. They didn't even know why, why am I still alive? I mean, I'm not doing, I can't contribute and this and that. And you don't hear a lot of them talk, even the homeless ones talk about why they're homeless. It's basically none of your damn business. One guy told me, and I learned from that because, it's usually something traumatic happened is why they're homeless, so it's crazy. But yeah, I want to answer, Lynn Nioki was asking, is there any World War I vets? No, they're all dead. There is no World War I vets alive. And there are very, very few World War II vets. Because you figure, when did the World War II end?
45.
45. So, I mean, they're getting up there in age, and the ones who did survive, they were like, the ones that are alive right now were like 18-year-olds when the war was going on. So there's not a lot of them. Not like they were when I was a kid. They were everywhere. Back in the 60s, they were everywhere. And all my drill sergeants were Vietnam vets. So, yeah.
Well, I know, Jason, that you mentioned, the VFW and the American Legion, and Big Mike, you did too. But I talked to a lot of these younger kids that are getting out. I mean, they put 4 years in the service, and then they get out. They're a veteran. They're like, well, I don't know nothing. Yeah, I got some disability, but they won't go to those places. They're like, well, they're full of old people. And so if they're needing support, they're needing to be around their fellow veterans. They're not going to those places that they could get those services from because they don't really relate to the older generation. Going to the VFW, and I know, I mean, I go to my local VFW, and sure enough, there's not very many that are younger than I am. I mean, but and those guys, they don't want to go there. So that leaves them all by themselves. They don't have anybody to talk to. They're like, oh man, I don't want to hang out with them old people and stuff. And and they don't know where to go because they haven't been talking to anybody.
Yeah.
So I always make it a point, especially young guys that are getting out. And, like I said, I see them through a motorcycle club, and not just mine, but other clubs. And I make it a habit to talk to them and say, hey, do you know what's available? Do you know there's people out here for you? Maybe you're doing good. Maybe you're not. Not my business. But if you're not, you need to talk to people. And sometimes that's all it is just sitting down and talking to somebody and relating to them. Sometimes just maybe sitting having a beer or two till 0 dark 30 in the morning. Doesn't that work, Jason?
Seemed to work pretty good for us, didn't it?
It sure did. So
and I think you bring up a really, really good point, and I guess I don't think about it, that much of the younger generation, right? Because even in the town that I live in here, even though I'm part of the younger generation, I'm in a retirement community. It's so like to go to our VFW, that kind of stuff, and you don't see a lot. But thinking about it, like it makes sense. Where Gunny is down there is he's in a swarm of military bases. That's like that hot spot of every branch has somebody there, and that would make more sense. Like I guess we probably don't mention it a lot because I know I personally I don't deal with that here, but I could see it now, and that's a good point. And I'm probably going to put my eyes out a little bit more to see if I can identify some younger guys to go. Because I've been part of that too with the VFW. Like I'm still technically I'm not a member of my VFW here. Mainly, honestly, out of the fear of my lack of self-control, because if I get committed with the VFW, everything that I needed to do around here at the Ridge and all the other stuff is going to go away, and I'll be focused nothing on but the VFW. Like that. And I want to go down and join, and we've talked about it quite a bit, Tara and I have, but I also know my limit of, and my focus is going to switch to trying to be down there and help those guys and do all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, so it honestly, it worked out perfect, when Mike and I talked about starting this channel, because then I'm like, great, because now I can, do somewhat of the same thing. One, we get our therapy, but then two, we're getting information out to everybody to, through this channel. And it saves me from having to over dedicate into something else that I just don't have time for. I hate it, and I give recognition to any of the vets, especially around here, that I see and stuff like that. And if they're talking about it, I mean, I probably had more conversations about the vet things. And I wished I would have had more of my Sergeant's Talk TV shirts. I took one, and I should have took like a dozen. Because I threw our channel out there to get all these guys information a lot. And
well, you should have took 7 in 7 different colors so they know you change shirts.
Well, I mean, by the time we got done, I thought I packed enough clothes, and as it got done, my last 3 days, I had to wear the same shirt because it was the only one that would air out enough during the day that I could rewear it the next day and not have everybody avoiding me. So I was like, okay. Oh. But yeah, I think location. I'm glad you brought that up because that definitely has got a little more attentive to. Based on your location, you could be running into a younger generation.
Yeah. So I'll tell you something that Terry told me. We went to the gas station before she went down to Waco on Monday, and we were at the gas station. I was filling up her car. And this guy was standing there, and I seen him, and he goes, "Hey, what's up?" And he was probably in his 70s, and I seen the tattoo on his forearm, right? And it was a paratrooper. It said paratrooper on it, and because I was filling up the car, and I looked over there because he put his hand on the car, and I just reached my hand out and I said, "Thank you for your service." And he said, "How'd you know I was a veteran?" I said, "I seen the paratrooper thing on your forearm." He goes, "Oh yeah." And I said, "Thank you for your service." And he goes, um, uh, "Did you serve?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Army." I said, "You was in the Army too?" He goes, "Yeah. How'd you know?" I said, "Again, the paratrooper thing." And he goes, "Oh yeah." I said, "Are you guys?" He goes, "Are you from around here?" I said, "Yeah, I live right down the road here." He goes, "Yeah, we're coming up from Texas." I said, "Oh, where are you going?" He goes, "We're going to Rogers, Arkansas." I said, "Rogers, Arkansas." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "A buddy of ours in the Army um, is going in for heart surgery, and we wanted to get together just in case, because he said he's the older of us." And I go, "Oh wow." And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I served a little bit before you." He goes, "I was in Vietnam." And I go, "Oh, okay." And I said, "Oh, so how was it to get a draft notice?" He goes, "Let me tell you a story." And he started talking. I didn't know this guy from nobody. And I was down in, he goes, "I'm originally from New Mexico, and we grew cotton on their farm and wherever he's from, Rio Grande Valley, somewhere in there. I don't know." And he goes, "I came in, uh, and my mom says, 'Hey, you got a letter over on the table from the U.S. government.'" And he goes, "I don't know nobody in the U.S. government." She goes, "You might want to read it." And he opened it up and he's going, "I got a report." He had a report somewhere. And he go, "On this date," and stuff like that. He goes, "I don't want to go in the military. I got a farm to run." And she goes, "Well, you do have a second option." And he said, "Well, what's the second option? I'll take that one." And his mom says, "There's a fine little resort the Army has in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, that will take you in." He goes, "What?" He goes, "That's where all the military people that think they're smarter than the government, because his dad was in World War II, they throw him in Leavenworth, and you do a tour in Leavenworth rather than going in the military." He goes, and he looked at his mom. He goes, "Can I borrow the car?" And she goes, "No, but I'll drive you there because you may not come back."
Right.
And this was just off a simple, seeing a tattoo, knowing he was in the military. And that's like we talked about before. Um, if you've been in the military and you're sitting somewhere and you hear a conversation, a lot of times you can hear the way, and it may not even be about the military, but you can pick up words and phrases that stick with you the rest of your life. Right? I was in a place and the guy he goes, "Oh yeah, man, Roger that." What civilian says Roger that? You know what I mean? And I looked over and I said, "Hey, thank you for your service." And he goes, "What?" And he goes, "Oh, thanks." And he goes, how did you know that?" I said, "I'm just listening to you, brother. I know you was in the military." He goes, "Was he in the military?" I said, "No, he wasn't in the military." He goes, "You're right." No. So having a responsibility for veterans and active duty military and supporting, reserve, National Guard, all that stuff. I think that we do have a responsibility in the fact that they're being supported. do what you can. And when you're at the Walmart and you see somebody with a military hat on, yeah, there might be somebody that grabbed it from their granddad or whatever. I don't know, but 9 times out of 10, you can tell, and just take the time to booster their morale by just thanking them. I know that the Vietnam era guys, they got treated like dog crap. Okay. They deserve so much more than what they had. Terry and I went to Thailand, and then we went up by Cambodia. And I'm going to tell you something. And we went there in November, and it was so freaking stinking hot. I don't know how many times Terry almost passed out because of the humidity and the heat and what these poor guys went through in Vietnam. I mean, and you watch a Vietnam movie and their sleeves are ripped off and this and that, and you're just going, man, how did they get away with that? Dude, go to Thailand or Cambodia or Laos and be in shorts and a t-shirt and see how freaking hot it is. Not alone saying you got to wear all your battle rattle and you have to live crap.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like you look at those, right? And in current standards now you go over, well, I know like when I deployed to Afghanistan the first time in 2008, they gave us those upgraded uniforms that were supposed to like breathe more, like it was just like the cotton type material. They were supposed to be fire retardant, but then we had to burn them. I'm like, they're supposed to be fire retardant. Why am I burning them when we're done? But we wore those, and the problem was they had changed, like your regular belt from the web belt to now you've got your martial arts belts or whatever. Well, the problem we had was when you started going on long, like road marches and hikes and stuff, the new Molly packs actually rubbed on your hip bones.
Yeah.
And you were getting chafed in your hips. Well, I was being kind of a smartass one time, and I'm like, I'm going to find them, though, and see if this makes a difference. I went out and found, because they were desert camo uniform, I found desert, tan suspenders. And the next hike we went on, I wore them just to see, because I'm like, I was a staff sergeant, so really nobody was going to say shit to me about it anyways.
Yeah.
So I tried it. We went out and we did, I think it was like one of the 10-mile hikes or whatever with it.
Right.
And I was one of the only ones that didn't have raw hip bones when we were done. And they're like, how the hell did you? And I'm like, I'm telling you, it's these freaking suspenders. Yeah. And they're like, you're full of shit. Well, then one other guy went and got some. And they're like, they're not authorized. I was like, I don't give a shit. Neither sitting in medical because we all have hip bone infections. And I did.
I wore that chafe, and a lot of times you'll get a freaking big old impacted zit on your waistline. Man, that sucks. That sucks. That sucks. Hey, I want to say hello to Craig. Craig's in here. Welcome in. I seen Dawn at our flipping farmstead. My favorite female Marine. She's in here. Linda Peterson's in here. Denise
Jay
is
Oliver.
in here.
Jay Oliver. Jay Oliver. Happy to join you all. Prior Marine Reserve and Air Force active here.
Southern Blast, our Air Force brothers in here. Mac, welcome in, brother. But yeah, it just, I remember I was working for MWR. I was the outdoor rec director at Fort Huachuca, Arizona. And we had a signal unit. I think it was 86 signal. The whole battalion was leaving. And at Fort Huachuca, that's the home of drone warfare. It's where they learn to be drone operators, mechanics, and all kinds of stuff down there because they have so much open airspace. And then they also help with the border mission because they can take those big drones up and videotape. And then they have a room inside the gray building that's down in the basement that all these drone operators that are stationed there, they're flying the drones over in country because they don't allow drone operators to go into country. So they're flying them from Huachuca, and the drone's sitting in Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever they're at. So I was down there as the MWR director, and I go, wow, these guys are leaving. And I asked my boss, I said, what are you going to do? He goes, no, the military handles that stuff. And I said, you know what? Screw this. I went to the garrison commander, who's my boss's boss. And I said, hey, you know what? We need to do something for these guys. And, you know, I said, I know you guys got a family support group, and I know your wife's probably in charge of it. And, you know, we got to do something for the families. So we set up all kinds of stuff and that they have never set up before. And, you know, then we went down to when they were leaving and stuff, and we gave stuff away to them. You know, we went out and we bought, you know, all kinds of stuff. Because I remember when I was over there, you know, they have those cloths that you can get damp and then you snap them and you can. So I contacted a buddy of mine that works for this one company. And I said, hey, can you get a hold of these things? And can you get me some tan ones for the desert? And yeah, they were going to Afghanistan. And so he goes, hey, let me find out. Next thing I know, 3 cases of these cool towels. Okay. And they're desert, the sand color. And so we were handing those out to everybody. They go, oh, what's this? And we had a guy there, and he'd get it wet and then snapped it, and they got to try it out. And they go, holy crap. And I said, I just remember what it was like when I was in the desert. I wish I had something like this, you know. And then seeing this one guy, he was dipping, and I said, hey, make sure you write to Copenhagen. And I got on my phone. I go, oh, there it is right there. And because I still have the information, I said, you need to write these people. They might send you some Copenhagen while you're over there. And he's going, what? I said, you guys don't know about this? They go, no. I said, dude, you write every company you can, send them a picture of you and your brothers and sisters out there in the desert, and you'll be surprised how much stuff they ship to you. It might take a while, but it'll get. So, I mean, it's things like that, you know, you figure all these people work for the government. The only reason they're there is because of the military member that's getting ready to deploy, and you're not going to do nothing for them. Now, that was a hard pill for me to swallow as a civilian, former military. So yeah, it's just, you know, like I said, maybe am I my brother's keeper? Is that ingrained deep inside of me that I would step over my boss to go to his boss to get something done, you know, because my boss is just a civilian. He's never served a day in his life, you know. So I don't know. It's just sometimes you make a stand and you got to die on your sword. So let's see.
Exactly. I seen Dawn make a comment about she didn't have a beard. That's just because she shaves it.
Yeah, I found out from my wife they have these certain razors for women. So that don't work like razors, but they work like razors. I don't know what they're called. Because I was watching a show, and this lady, it's called 4 Seasons. It's on Netflix. And she was looking in the mirror, and she took this razor out, and she was doing her upper lip and stuff and the sides and stuff. I go, whoa, 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 whoa. Doesn't she know it's going to come in thicker? There he goes, no, that's a certain kind of thing. It takes off the skin follicles or whatever. I don't know. So I learned something on a movie, and my wife taught it to me. So Uh,
I'm.
yeah, I was at Fort Lost in the Woods for sure. There's Linda Peterson. Um, hey, there's Jay Oliver. Happy to join y'all. Prior Marine Reserve and Air Force active here. All right. Everybody needs a little chair force in their life. They're the only ones that make sense in a bar fight. Guys, stop it.
I think so. Yeah, I was talking about it earlier. There was that military appreciation little gathering they had for all the active and now there were two active Army that when Tara and I went into the piano bar the one night, like I know they were in there. I heard them talking up there. They were talking with a piano player and stuff. Like they were active duty on leave doing this cruise, but they didn't show up to the function. But the Army, like, so they have you stand up, you got to be loud, right? Well, the Army had more on there. I think the Navy was next, and then I bet there was only 6 of us Marines on the whole dang ship. But so, shockingly enough, I don't think there was any. Or no, there was Air Force. There was a couple of Air Force, but then there was like no Coast Guard, and then there was no the Space Force. But the cruise director said a few cruises ago he actually did have somebody with Space Force in there.
Yeah.
But that was cool to do. But then I don't know. I guess my big takeaway from tonight, trying to look at things and play it through my head, is we focus so much on the older generation, right, of respecting our elders, doing that stuff, but then we kind of forget the younger ones, and it does seem that there's a lot more of them struggling, with the mental health issues.
Yeah.
Going over and having to, do what we got to do over there. So I guess it would be keep that extra eye out for the younger generation getting out. And
hey, Kunsan Air Base. I've been to Kunsan Air Base. I went. What did I go over there for? I went over there. Do they call? I wonder if do they call it K6? No, K16 was up by Seoul. K16 was up there, but Kunsan. It's hard to get to Kunsan from Daegu, South Korea. You got to go up and around from Daejeon and come back down. But I went over there to do something MWR thing at the air base. Oh no, I went there. I went to Kunsan. I took an artist that came over to Korea to Kunsan. I was with him on this tour, and that was Nelly, the rapper Nelly.
Oh yeah,
hip-hop artist Nelly. I took him. I spent like 11 days with him, and we toured Korea. I went with him to all the stops in Korea and stuff. Had to set up the sound system, contract the sound system, the stages, all that stuff when I was over there as a civilian. So they said, "Hey, would you like to go to a job in Korea?" I said, "What would I have to do?" They said, "Oh, we need a concert production guy." And I said, "Well, how much you're going to pay me?" They said, "Oh, we'll pay you 89,000 plus you get free housing, you get 25% cola, and all this other stuff." And I'm going, "I'm your dude. I'll go there." And I stayed over there a little over 5 years. Terry and I did, and I seen so many artists come to the peninsula. It was crazy, and I got paid for that, and I was having fun.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy I remember as I was getting ready to retire, they offered me the same position I was doing as an active Marine, but I would go over and I would technically work for the Army as a civilian, still writing curriculum. And that was a pretty good paycheck they offered. I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, you'd stay here. You just move over to a different office. Working like same department. It's just you would go over to the Army side and work, and it was pretty tempting, but knowing I wanted to go.
Craig says he recommends you go join the local VFW. I mean, you don't have to. You don't have to be an officer or nothing like that in the VFW. But
I agree, and I think it's one of those, like, I bring it up every once in a while because it's one of those I need to just go down there and suck it up, and at least be the member, because that way it'll keep going and they can. And I think I try to convince myself, I've talked it out enough with my wife that we can both kind of control me wanting to go volunteer and do everything that they've got going on.
What birthday parade?
Yeah, I don't know what they're talking about there.
I don't know what birthday parade. Are you talking about Putin's birthday? Because they were having a big military parade. Stop the war, ceasefire. We're going to have a parade. And Ukraine's having a fit about that one. No, come back. We want to kill more of you. Oh, man.
Brother Jesse's sharing out where to get your own Sergeant's Talk TV merch.
That's right. Get your own Sergeant's Talk TV shirt. Neither one of us. He can't wear his. His all his stuff is dirty. Put away wet.
Mama's been working on laundry like all day. I mean, we got in. It was about 1:30 this morning.
There's an Army birthday parade for America. The parade, the $40 million one that's gonna tear up streets. Oh, really?
Does that have anything? So I didn't look any information.
14th of June is the Army's birthday.
Because I had seen, of course, it's Facebook, so you never know what you believe. But I did see something that popped up talking about Trump was going to do celebrating 250 years or whatever. It was going to be a big to do. But
yeah,
I don't know if that's part of it. I don't watch news, so
yeah,
I see some excerpts here and there, and if I hear about something, that I'll go research in a couple different.
Hey, all they really have to do to pay for that is they've already recouped all the stuff for sex changes in South America. They can just use that money. Whatever they got back, the billions that they've recouped. I mean, there's a lot of money that they couldn't because it was already been spent. But the money that was still in bank account and all that stuff that they came back, what was like 140 billion that they could get their hands on that was still sitting in bank accounts on contractors that they took it all back. Yeah, use that money. It was already spent anyway.
Right. Yeah,
affirmative. The media said it's because the 14th of June is the Army's birthday. That'd be 250. And November 10th, Marine Corps
250. I know. I've actually had a couple invites.
And wasn't the Navy in October, or was that the Air Force? But the Air Force wasn't established until what, in the 40s or the 50s? I don't know. It's relatively young, because remember, all the Army Air Corps, the Army had all the planes before they established. They said, hey, let's make a separate aviation branch.
Yeah, because originally all the air was Army Air Corps.
Yeah.
and then they had come out because it was. But isn't the Navy's the oldest though, isn't it?
No.
No,
No.
I don't know
No.
when they were officially. I know the Marines were established as security for the
Because
Navy.
remember, during the Revolutionary War, we didn't have no Navy. We were getting our butts pounded.
Yeah. Well, I like to watch history. It doesn't mean I remember it all.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesse's got us.
Yeah,
Army right here. June 14th, 1775. Navy was October. And then Marine Corps was November. And then Coast Guard August of 1790. Army, Navy.
Yeah, I knew the Army was the oldest. But when was the Air Force?
Yeah. When did Chair Force come along? They had to invent the chair.
They had to invent the chair first.
But not just anyone. It had to have the rolly wheel one.
Yeah, they had to have the.
They had chairs.
Well, back then they weren't ergonomically correct.
Yeah.
Here it comes. I'm waiting, Jesse. When was the Air Force?
We got his Google machine fingers working now. I hear it.
It's not even in the same ballpark as the other ones. Not even close. I thought it was after 45 or something.
I'm actually rather shocked at the Coast Guard being at 1790.
Yep, 1947.
There it is.
And I tell everybody, hey, what branch of the service do you think my kid should go into? I said, hey, was he smart or was he, a dumbass in high school? Because if he was smart, he needs to go into the Air Force. If he was a dumbass, he ain't getting in because they're going to look at his school grades. Okay. And so unless he's going to go in there to be, whatever, a freaking janitor or something. Because the Air Force needs janitors. That's what I told my son. I said, son, no, you're not going to the Air Force. You couldn't even qualify to be a janitor. With your grades.
Although I remember my first, probably 4 or 5 months at least, when I got to the first duty station, we felt just like that's all we did was we were glorified janitors. I was like, can we work on something? And they're like, nah, you're new guys. You go paint this, go sweep that, go. It was crazy.
Yeah. My son tested, and his mechanical skill was his highest thing. Because my son, he's a carpenter. He can figure out anything. I said, you know what? You just use math. And that was your worst subject. He goes, no, Dad, I just figured it out. I know the angle. I go, look, this guy, if you told him, said, hey, build me something, he can build them. He builds $500,000 barn dominiums and customizes them. He does all kinds of stuff. And so he was going to join. He goes, well, Dad, I want to go to college. I said, well, Missouri National Guard will give you $66,000 for college if you join them. And so he went in there and tested and everything. And they're going, oh, dude, this part right here. And they said, this is what we can offer you. So he brought it home. I'm looking at this. And I said, what the hell is this? And so I looked the number up online. I'm going, high voltage electrician. And he goes, oh, and so we looked up and it showed what they did. And besides the high voltage, when units deploy, they have these big connexes, and it's a generator inside of a gigantic length of a 40-foot connex.
Oh, geez.
And that's part of the training there. And the school is a year long, the AIT. So they said, hey, you're going to Jackson, and then you're going up somewhere, someplace on the East Coast for General Electric, and the school is at the General Electric schoolhouse. And when he passes it, then he got a $40,000 bonus, right? And I'm like going, dude, and the guy said, this never comes up. It just came up because they came out with a new Connex system, and they wanted to fill slots, and they required almost a max on your whatever it is, ST for your mechanical or whatever.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He about maxed that thing out, and so he goes, "Oh," I go, "Man, you're it. I'm so proud of you." So they sent him up to St. Louis to the Met, right? He goes up there, does his physical, does all that stuff, and then they put him in a hotel. You're putting 18-year-olds in a hotel on their own. Okay? Because I remember it. I said, no, I'll be here. They said, if you're not here, you're AWOL. And so he went up there and he called his buddy. He goes, man, I'm up here at the hotel. I said, hey, dude, we'll come up and see you, man. You know, you're doing something with your life, blah, blah, blah. So they go up there. So they get up there and they go partying. And the next morning, they pissed every last one of them. Before they get on the bus, they do a piss test. My boy came up harder. You're out of here. And then they put a 5-year block on him. He couldn't enlist in any military for 5 years. So.
Oh, really?
He went to become a carpenter. So.
See, my oldest son he actually shocked me that day because he had come home like he wasn't sure. He was graduated, and he's like, or about to graduate, and he didn't really want to go to college. He's like, I'm not getting a scholarship. You know, his older sister, my oldest daughter, had got a full ride, and he's like, yeah, I'm not her. I'm not getting a full ride. Like they offered me one, but I gotta pay for ball. He goes, I don't want to go in debt, and
yeah,
like maybe I'll just get a job. He really liked computers, you know. He's always on the gaming and doing electrical, and so he come home the one day and he goes, well, Dad, I was talking to the recruiter, and I said, which one? And he goes, the Marines. And I was like, no. He goes, yeah, no, Dad, I talked to him. And I'm like, no. And he's like, just listen to me. And he goes, I want to go take the test. Okay, you're way smarter than going in the Marine Corps, but fine. So I go up, I meet with the recruiter, and we're talking, and he's like, hey, I'm going to have him take the pre-test. So he takes the pre-test. He goes, okay, do you want to go to, MEPS now? Sure. So I actually drove him to MEPS for the recruiter, drove him over there, and got him in, did his test. He missed 4 questions from being perfect on the entire ASVAB.
Hang on one second. Keep going.
But yeah, and so get him all scheduled up. But I told the recruiter at this time, I said, dude, you ship him as fast as you can, because he's gonna change his mind. And no, we're good. But this is we got him back, and with him scoring so high, he was able to pick any MOS he wanted. So we spent quite a while, though, because he wanted to make sure he was in some sort of like computer data. So we got him approved, go in on Intel. And I was like, sweet, there you go. That's going to be a great stepping stone if you decide after 4 years or 5 years, whatever. I don't remember if he was on a 5-year contract for that one, but I said, that'll be great. Like, if you decide you don't like it, you'll get out, then you'll have college paid for. You can go do college and do something else. Yeah, great. And I told that recruiter, ship him now. And we got back from MEPS, and he said, well, at the time he had to graduate. And I said, don't give him any time after graduation. Just let him launch. And it was only a few weeks away. And sure enough, we got the call. The recruiter had bumped him back like another month. And I told him, I said, do not. I understand your quotas. I understand what you got to do. Like, but this isn't the kid that you mess around with. If you wait, and he bumped him back 2 months, and my son pulled out of it. And then the recruiter called me and was like begging me to convince my son. I said, no, I'm not doing any of it. I said, one, I told you from the get-go. You know, his recruiter was a sergeant. And I said, look, you know, I've showed you, confirmed with you that I'm a staff sergeant. Like, I told you, and you didn't do it. You wanted to play the old Lance Corporal don't know game and try to run the numbers. You
Yeah.
effed up, not me. Well, we really need, and but
Yeah.
I did finally, I think it was last year sometime or year before, we were sitting around and I mean, he works full time now. You know, he did a little bit of college, not much. He's like, Dad, I should have just went.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I know. I mean, even if you would have done the 4 and then got out, but they, you know, and I think that that's ridiculous. I get it for planning purposes, right? Like, I mean, I was at the schoolhouse. I understand the recruiting numbers and how to plan it and do that kind of stuff, but they've got to make an exception at some point, because I've seen a lot of guys do that. Even when I went in, there was 3 or 4 from my high school that all it had listed for different branches, and the recruiters were holding them back so that they could get their quota for the next month instead of doing that month, and they lost them all. And I'm like, you guys are dumb.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. What time is it? 9:31. But hey, I want to thank. Hey, first of all, I want your uncle for coming in here. Gunny came in, spent some time with us, guys. Anytime we have an open mic, we always put a link up there, and you can click that link and come into the on the panel and talk with us on whatever subject we're talking about. I love the open mics with a subject. A lot of times, Jason and I, we go totally off subject. Like, we talk about Caribbean cruises. Hey, and there is a thing. It's called Veterans Vacation Club. Okay, if you Google Veteran Vacation Club, a lot of good deals on that one. And then another site is a thing called VetTix, VETTIX. Dude, there's people donate tickets in there. You'd be surprised. I mean, I look on there all the time. Concerts up in Tulsa, at the casinos and all that kind of stuff. And
I used to go to events all the time through VetTix, NHRA races, NASCAR races, concerts,
NASCAR, all kinds of stuff.
I mean, they changed their layout a little bit of how it works. You know, so, but if you weren't part of it before, then you'll never know it's different now.
Yeah. So the first time I used them, I was in Colorado, and I went on there. I said, I want to try this out. And my wife, I said, hey, I got some concert tickets. And she's going, what concert is it? I said, I don't know. It's because, you know, I listen to country and old rock and stuff like that. I said, it's a group called, I don't know. It's the N's backward, NIN or something like that. And then another one called Marilyn Manson. And she goes, oh my Lord. She goes, you mean 9 Inch Nails? I said, oh, is that what it's called? I thought it was weird. And so Terry, not Terry, my first wife. And she goes, we went up there. Dude, I could not even hear. Marilyn Manson should be put in jail some way, away from everybody. He is a weirdo. But that was my first experience with VetTix. Got in there. And all of a sudden I turn around and some of my soldiers were in there, and they're going, hey, what's going on, Sarge? I didn't know you like this. I said, I didn't know I did either.
Yeah. And but it's really cool because we went What was the other thing? Got to take the kids to a couple baseball games.
Yeah.
Football, NFL, went to some preseason games. Like they have something on there, all over the place. Like
Yeah.
you have to go in, you can search it, do the filters.
Yep.
And then, I don't know how it is now. I honestly haven't looked. We've looked at it now probably 6 months ago. Just to see but it's super cool.
We had to do a show up and bring the site up and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Another one to look into that is the GovX.
Yeah, GovX.
Yeah, because they actually have one. Now they're kind of a last minute deal, so you can't pre-plan way out, but they have GovX has tons of discounts, and they're all first responders. So police, firemen, nursing, military, all that stuff is on the GovX one. And but if you watch it, you could possibly get like a free cruise. You got to pay taxes. Nothing's ever totally free, but free statement.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things out there. So I'll look into the vet ticks and the vacation club. And if you didn't know, Army MWR has a hotel on Disney property in Florida called Shades of Green. And you can get your Disney tickets to them, get all that stuff down there. They don't call them, say, do you have a military rate? The rate you're getting is for the military. Okay. And if
isn't there, what's that resort down in Alabama? I think it is.
A resort in Alabama.
There's the Army MWR owns it's either the Panhandle of Florida or it's right there on the Gulf of Alabama.
I've never heard of that.
Okay, well, I guess that's going to be one of our upcoming shows, and I'll have to find that one. But yeah, no, it's an MWR one. Like they blew it up when we were when I was at Fort Benning in Georgia.
Could it be a naval one or an Air Force one?
No, it was MWR.
There's no Army down. Oh, Fort Rucker.
No, it's a military resort. It's not at a base. It's not at a base.
Oh, it's not.
No. They
okay. Well, I know Shades of Green's in Florida. The Haleakala is ran by the Army in Hawaii. The Dragon Hill Lodge is in Korea. The Edelweiss is in Germany. So yeah, and if you're military or you're a veteran, you qualify to stay at all those Armed Forces recreation centers. So yeah, but they go by your rank that you were in the military. Is how you pay the Armed Forces hotels and stuff like that. Like if you were an E1 through E4, they have a price. If you were E5 to E6, then senior NCOs, E7 through E9, and stuff like that. So, but we'll talk about that. We'll get something together.
Yeah.
And I hope to see everybody back in here. Our new brothers and sisters that are in here. Well, I'd like to thank you guys for coming in. Hey, tell your buddies about us. Come on in and let's get to talking. Okay. Jesse just put the GovX one up there. So yeah, guys, we absolutely love you guys. Again, this is vets talking to vets. We also talk to spouses, children of vets. We also talk to the grandparents. They want to know what's going on. And we talk to Gold Star family members and our brothers and sisters in arms. So, guys, hey, remember, be kind to one another, help somebody in need, and always think of that. Guys, we love you. God bless you, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye now.
I always grab the wrong mouse.
The Lake Tellico Lodging in Alabama.